Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey, folks, today is Monday, January 5th, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Democrats are demanding answers after Donald Trump invades another country, arrests its sovereign leader, the president of Venezuela, and says that America will be running that country and controlling its oil. We'll be talking with Congressman Hank Johnson and others about this as Nicolas Maduro makes his first appearance in a United States federal courtroom. Also, black pastors call out what took place in Venezuela. We'll have that for you as well. Plus, on today's show, Inauguration Day in Atlanta, Mayor Andre Dickens lays out his agenda for his second term. It is time to bring the funk for the first show in 2026. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Donald Trump promised no new wars. That's a lie. Donald Trump promised that America was going to be focused on America. That's also a lie. The actions this weekend in Venezuela make it perfectly clear exactly what the right-wing MAGA person is trying to do. In fact, MAGA is thrilled by what took place as the United States stormed Venezuela, sent in special forces, arrested its president and his wife, charged him with drug trafficking. And today in a New York courtroom, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, appeared along with his wife before a federal judge. He pled not guilty to charges, making it perfectly clear that he is not guilty. The charges include him and associates conspiring with narco-terrorists to ship thousands of tons of cocaine into the United States. Now, Trump says the U.S. is now in charge in Venezuela. A claim Secretary of State Marco Rubio sought to temper on Capitol Hill, saying the administration is aiming for a democratic transition in the Latin American country. But Trump has made it clear they want to run the country. Protests have been taking place worldwide. Uncertainty mounts over what comes next. And of course, Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, called for an agenda of cooperation with the United States, which is different than what she was saying just 2 days ago. California Congressman Jimmy Gomez joins us right now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Congressman, glad to have you here. Here's what we know. First and foremost, Donald Trump made no effort at all to alert the Big Eight, or the Group of Eight, on Capitol Hill. Now, apparently he was talking to Republicans, not talking to Democrats. He's decided he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't need to talk to Congress. He needs no authorization. And so his whole deal is, what the hell? I'll do it to Venezuela, and I'll do it to Colombia. I'll do it to Cuba. I'll do whatever it is I want to do.
No, that's absolutely what occurred. Donald Trump is engaging in a foreign policy that he believes should not be bound by the rules of law. He doesn't believe it should be bound by Congress, and he can do whatever he wants whenever he wants. That's why this whole situation smells and stinks to high heaven, because every time he tried to come up with the fact pattern that says, hey, this is why we're doing it, it changes. At first, it was about drugs. Remember, he was saying it's all about drugs and these speedboats and that they're narco terrorists, and that Maduro is directing Train de Agua in the United States. And that's why they were going to use the Alien and Enemies Act, the Alien Enemies Act, to deport Venezuelans back to Venezuela. But then all of a sudden they invade, and take Maduro out. And now it's not just about Maduro being a drug trafficker. It's about the oil. It's about making sure that we have access to minerals, making sure that United States controls that country. So that's the whole thing, is that he's trying to find legal justifications for his actions based on facts that are not necessarily there. So that's why people have to have Congress involved, because Congress is where the people's real representatives are. And we make decisions on the fact that he's sending men and women in uniform that are not Republican or Democrat, but they're Americans into harm's way. But he doesn't seem to care about that. He doesn't care about the facts, and he doesn't care about the consequence of his actions.
Now, let's be clear. I don't know of anybody who says, sure, go right ahead, bring drugs into the United States. But this is where it gets confusing. So now all of a sudden, Trump and Rubio are concerned about drugs when Donald Trump literally last month pardoned the former president of Honduras, who not only was indicted, he was convicted in a federal courtroom, sentenced to 45 years in prison in the White House. But he goes, well, the Biden Department of Justice treated a man named Trump so badly. They treated this man so badly. And so how can you all of a sudden say you care about drugs and a Latin American country, but you let that Honduran president off?
You can't. That's why it's a complete bullshit, because he's trying to justify his actions. He's saying it's about drugs, but he lets off the Honduran president. He says that they're treated poorly. That's his excuse. But we know that that's not true. He was convicted in a court of law. But then remember, he was saying that it was these speedboats bringing up fentanyl. And then when that excuse fell apart, because most fentanyl enters the United States at ports of entry carried by American citizens, not foreigners, by American citizens, then he switched and said it's about the cocaine. And in order to dry up the money, because cocaine's the main money maker for any of these cartels. However, most cocaine doesn't enter through the Caribbean. So he was lying to the American people from the get-go that it was about drugs. He had an objective. We knew this from, we had hunches of this as members of Congress, not from any kind of special reporting, but just the way that this administration acts to all its neighbors in the Western Hemisphere. We had a feeling that he was going to target Venezuela since last year after he got elected, because we know the way he thinks. He believes that the United States should have domination over all these other countries. So he says it's about drugs, but then he releases the Honduran president who was convicted. He says it's about drugs, but then most of the drugs don't come up from the Caribbean. They come up through Mexico or through the Pacific. So we know that this was just a pretext to create some kind of regime change that would be more friendly to the United States, not necessarily a new regime, but something that's more friendly that will let them get oil companies back into Venezuela, and in order to also go after the minerals that we need as a country. We do need them, but that's not the way we should go after them. So one of the things is he just has consistently lied to the American people why he's doing this.
Yeah, I mean, he's a liar. I mean, he lies and he lies and he lies. Then he comes out and he says, oh, yeah, we were talking with the oil companies before. We're going to go in and get our oil. And let's deal with that. Because here's the thing I think people need to understand something here. And that is this here. Venezuela is a sovereign nation. So are African nations. So is Brazil. So is Cuba. So is on and on. And so what Trump and MAGA and Republicans are saying is we can do whatever we want, when we want. Damn your country, damn your borders and your laws. If there is something that we want, we will take it by force. That's literally this is colonialism. This is imperialism. This is what the United States and Britain and the French have done for centuries.
And it's something that a lot of us who are involved in politics have been trying to change since we've been involved. The reason why is because the United States, when we actually build coalitions, do things in a way that will support countries, that is how we put America first. The way that he's doing it, trying to go back to the old imperialistic ways, that makes the United States weaker. It also gives a green light to China and to Putin and Russia. One of the things is that to go in against their neighbors. China to Taiwan, Russia to Ukraine and Estonia, and a lot of the former Soviet satellite states. So all of a sudden, we don't have the moral high ground to stand on, and it gives them a green light to violate not only those other sovereign states, but to say that, hey, if the United States did it, so can we.
The thing that gets them is this here. What the hell are your Republican colleagues saying? I mean, surely these people will be yelling, howling, screaming. If Biden or Obama just said, to hell with Congress, I'm going to do what I want to do. And they're just kind of like, okay, go right ahead. We support it. It's great. It's wonderful. We're just going to sit here and take a back seat. I mean, are they saying one thing privately and something else publicly?
Not that I've heard of. And that's because a lot of these folks just fall straight in line when it comes to Donald Trump and when it comes to whatever he wants. They forget that they're members of Congress. They forget that they're actually on an independent branch of government. So they don't actually say something different. And that's the scary part, because a lot of them do have these kind of tendencies. What they need to understand is that this is not just about, Maduro. This is not just about Venezuela. It's about how do we make the United States safer? How do we make it more prosperous? Because that's what the Americans care about. Remember, Donald Trump said no more foreign wars. He's going to be the most transparent president in U.S. history, that he was going to make sure that he was going to put America first. But everything that Donald Trump has done against his own base is, one, put foreign countries first, make it all about the billionaires, make it all about people that are well connected at the expense of the working class. So the Republicans should care, but they absolutely don't. And they're not saying anything separate to me, especially I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, but also on the House Intelligence Committee. They haven't expressed any concern. And that's the shocking part, because they should be concerned, because they're getting cut out of the process. And that's why I think you have like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is most of the time out of her mind, but she even said, I'm done with Donald Trump because I'm not here just to rubber stamp whatever he wants. So that's one of the issues, is that's what Republicans do. And that's when they do that, our system of government does not work by any means.
All right, so the question I keep getting from people, okay, fine, what's next? What can Democrats do? You don't control the House, you don't control the Senate. Donald Trump doesn't even give a damn about talking to Republicans, and the Republicans are trying to frame this as, oh, look at the Democrats. They're trying to protect and coddle a drug-dealing Venezuelan president. How do y'all respond? What do you say to the public?
Well, one of the things that Maduro was a dictator. He stole an election in 2024, and that we know that a lot of the Venezuelan people are happy that he's gone, especially the ones that fled. The 6 million that fled. The 600,000 Venezuelans are in the United States under TPS, temporary protected status. Now, one of the things that they should keep in mind, now that they had a military action in Venezuela, they can cut a deal with Venezuela and say, hey, you know what? We're going to leave in charge all his buddies, and you guys are going to accept the oil companies to come back in. Plus, you're going to accept all the TPS holders living in the United States, because we're going to deport them, and you have to accept their return. So that's one of the things, is that we want to kind of point out that that's going to happen. Additionally, we have to have a vote on a war powers resolution, or have Congress vote on authorization to have military action and also conflict in Venezuela. Because one of the things we want to make sure that the American people know, that the Republicans own the mess that will be caused if everything goes sideways, because that's what's about. They're going to try to say that they didn't know about it, that not enough time passed. We got to trust the president. No, the Republican Party needs to be on the hook for whatever goes down, and that's one process. It doesn't mean it's the last step. It means it's the beginning. And if Donald Trump thinks he's going to be able to get a free pass if the Democrats take the majority in 2026, he's sadly mistaken.
Well, I keep making it clear to people, if you do not show up and vote, this man will be left to do whatever the hell he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it. There should be congressional oversight. And I dare say this election in November is more critical than any that we face. I know people keep saying that, but I have been screaming that from the rooftops. I mean, this fool is talking about invading Mexico. The Supreme Court has said, oh, he pretty much has immunity to do whatever he wants to do. They've given him the green light. And so the thug in chief is literally focused on saying, I will invade, I will overthrow, I will use this military. He's got that idiot Pete Hegseth in charge of the Secretary of Defense. And frankly, what they're going to do is they've weeded out so many generals and other people who oppose their efforts. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they are already planning attacks on other countries to do the exact same thing.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that we know is that Donald Trump is willing to use the National Guard and the Marines in ways that nobody has ever used them before, and in a broader scope. So when they started with the ICE raids in LA, especially sending the National Guard and the Marines, I warn people this is going to spread. And this is not just about ICE raids. This is about normalizing military troops in our cities. So if all of a sudden he says that the elections were stolen and that we're at war with somebody, to justify being able to send troops into the blue states or the blue cities in the red states to control the population. This is about lowering everybody's guard. And why that's dangerous, because what happens if all of a sudden there's a disputed elections during the presidential election in 2028? State sets multiple, 2 or more slate of electors, and then all of a sudden nobody gets 270 electoral college votes. Then all of a sudden the election gets kicked to the House of Representatives. It becomes one state, one vote. There are more Republican states than Democratic states. They win without ever firing a shot. So we're playing for keeps. This is not a joke. So this next election is serious. We got to win this election so that we hold the gavel. Hakeem Jeffries is the one determining what electors are sat or not. So this is what it's about. It's about 2028, making sure that we can control the process. Because if we don't, then Donald Trump, even from his grave, will make sure that the Democrats don't have another president for another 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. Congressman Jimmy Gomez, we appreciate you joining us on the show. This is going to be an ongoing issue, so you're certainly welcome to come back anytime. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, as we said, what you have going on right now, you heard the Congressman there talk about Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. We're going to play that video. So guys, get that video ready. He spoke today on Capitol Hill about what took place. And again, and I really need everybody watching to understand what Donald Trump is saying is we can do this to anybody. What they're saying is we will use the United States military to take any action against any country. And they're talking about hemisphere. Let me say it again. You keep saying hemisphere. Well, guess what? They're talking about Cuba. They're talking about Haiti. They're talking about Dominican Republic. They're talking about the Bahamas. They're talking about the Caribbean. They're talking about Latin America. So their whole deal is, what's in the national interest? Why are they so angry? Well, 60% of Venezuelan oil purchased by China. You've seen some reports that they were negotiating, saying, all right, fine. Okay, Putin, we'll let you take Ukraine. We take Venezuela. Are we good? What they're saying is, if you have natural resources that we want and we will profit from, we're going to snatch those resources whenever we feel like it. This was a response from Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democratic leader.
It was Donald Trump who said costs would go down on day one. All of 2024, when they were on the campaign trail trying to get power, that they were going to lower costs. In fact, it was Donald Trump who said costs would go down on day one of his administration. A year later, costs haven't gone down in the United States of America. Costs have gone up. The affordability crisis is not a hoax. It is very real. Housing costs out of control, grocery costs out of control, utility costs out of control, child care costs out of control, and health care costs out of control. This week, as a result of a Democratic-led effort, the House of Representatives will vote on bipartisan legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so we can prevent tens of millions of Americans from experiencing dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles this month. Increases that in some cases could result in everyday Americans paying $1,000 or $2,000 more per month. Completely and totally unacceptable in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. House Democrats are going to continue to fight to lower the high cost of living, fix our broken health care system, and make life better for everyday Americans. While Donald Trump and the administration is off starting wars, most recently connected to the unauthorized military action in Venezuela. This wasn't a law enforcement action. They're lying to the American people when they say that. It was an unprecedented military action. And yes, in fact, it is the case that Maduro is a bad guy, a dictator, someone who was not the legitimate head of government or head of state in Venezuela. We also know that the future of the Venezuelan people should be determined by the Venezuelan people, not by Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, or Stephen Miller. Are you kidding me? These people don't even know how to run the United States of America. And we're supposed to believe that there's any credibility to the notion that the Trump administration is going to run Venezuela, a country of 30 million people in South America? The American people reject the possibility of another unjustified foreign war that seems to be on the horizon because of Trump's desire to reward big oil in the United States of America, while continuing to not do a damn thing to make life better for the American people.
All right, folks, I'm going to go to a break. And we come back. Sky News had this amazing report breaking down exactly when they talk about what this is all about oil, really what Donald Trump is trying to do, how he is trying to reward his billionaire friends by taking over Venezuela. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Net.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. America is being reshaped in real time by a group of 6 people, unelected and without any checks and balances. By the end of the current Supreme Court session, education, the workplace, who gets to elect our leaders, and so much more could radically change. This week, we reconvene our legal roundtable and look at what the new America may look like and how we should respond. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
This is Judge Mathis.
Hi, I'm Teresa Griffin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
3, 2, 1. Why did the United States raid Iraq? It was about oil. It's about controlling natural resources. Everything is oil, oil, oil. What did Donald Trump tell the oil company execs when he was running? He said, you guys give me $1 billion for my campaign, I'll make sure you get everything that you want. Sky News did this amazing breakdown of what this is all about in Venezuela. This is what they reported.
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil? Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil? And I can kind of understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, and I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it? Well, actually, no. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world. There's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it. But one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production. But this is gloopy, super viscous stuff. Heavy oil. So heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also, the key thing here is you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately, you still need it to go into, someone's car, or indeed, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it, and that processing, that happens in places like this, in refineries, and there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest.
Go.
All right, folks. So let me do this here. I want to had some issues right there with that video, but I do want you to see the rest of it, because I just really think it is critically important, the breakdown that they were making right there when they talk about crude oil and what's going on. And so let me see if I can pick it up from where I am. Let's go.
No audio.
All right, so let me sort out the audio issues here because I thought it was getting the audio, but we'll fix that as best as we can because again, how they broke this down to me was so important because what they were doing was just laying out exactly what this whole issue is. Control room, let me know when y'all have it fixed on your end because I want to play the rest of that. It's about another 3.5 minutes of that video, and I want to play the rest of it. Let me bring in my panel right now. Dr. Omi Congo, Debenga, Senior Professor of Lecture School of International Service, American University, joining us right now. Melinda Haight, she is a creator, Black Voices Heard out of LA. Cameron Trimble, CEO, Hip Politics Media, from White House Senior Advisor. Omi Congo, listen, it is beyond shameful what we're seeing from Donald Trump and the Republicans here. And this is not making excuses for Maduro. He is a dictator. Let's be perfectly clear. We don't believe anybody. We certainly believe in democracy. He stole an election. But that is not a precursor for the United States to say, oh, well, because of that, we're just going to go in and take over your country. And we're going to control your country how we see fit. We're going to dictate how you run your country. And then if you don't go along with what our plan is for your country, then we're going to take your leadership out. I got a book I'm going to bring in. That reminds me of Stephen Kinder's book, Overthrow, because that's exactly what we did in Iran. We threw over Mossadegh. Omi Congo, do we have him? I'll throw that question to Cameron.
Yes. Hey, Roland. Happy New Year. I wish it was under happier circumstances. This is straight out of the. It's funny that this seems to continually happen under Republican leadership. When they go after and take these unilateral approaches where we go in after these oil-rich, asset-rich countries and then try to justify and build something else later. The Sky News and the reasons why we are going after this heavy crude oil that is in Venezuela. I saw that same breakdown over the weekend. It was quite interesting because it's really all about these oil refineries, especially those in the Gulf Coast, and that while America is one of the largest, if not the largest oil producer, and with all the fracking and the shale boom that we've had, what people really don't realize is that we still are also one of the largest oil importers because we are importing that heavy crude that Venezuela normally produces. And all that does is feed into the profits of refineries and so many of those oil companies. So this is it. And then you don't have to look very far to see who are the biggest donors to the Presidential Inauguration Committee, something that raised billions of dollars in money to support Donald Trump in addition to his campaign. And understanding that intricate web of the folks who are literally paying for influence and now paying to essentially turn our military into their acquisition arm is quite disgusting. And the worst part is we're putting our military, we're putting our citizens at risk, and we're completely getting lied to and getting brushed over to the point that the way our government is supposed to work, because Congress really has the power to actually declare war, it's just skirting again another example of the president kind of skirting every single law that exists.
Well, Melinda, let's be perfectly clear. As Stephen Kinzer breaks down in his book Overthrow, 14 different times the United States overthrew governments directly. In every single one, it was tied to business interests.
Sure.
The first time was Hawaii. Hawaii was its own country. Well, guess what? The people, the rich interests in the United States, they wanted to control those farms. And the Hawaiians said, oh, we're going to pick our own leader. And the Americans said, oh, the hell you are? No, you're not. The reason we got the phrase banana republic is because we helped overthrow governments, Guatemala and others, because those who own the banana plantations said, y'all not going to nationalize your products. We overthrew Allende in Chile, okay, because ITT and other companies got mad because they nationalized their resources. The United States does not, has a history of not liking other countries choosing to control their own resources.
Correct.
We want to control them for American economic interests. Period.
Yes. Absolutely. And you know, it's interesting, just looking back at all the warnings that we gave about this administration and everything that they were going to do, nobody should be surprised because it was all about privatization and helping billionaires. Education's being privatized, healthcare's being privatized, prisons, air traffic control, the list goes on. So no one should be surprised that he's invading another country in order to benefit all of his billionaire friends. And in general, I do think that everyone does want there to be peace and liberation for the people of Venezuela, and no one wants to take away from that excitement that they're feeling, but it's hard to think that there will be a positive upward trajectory from these actions because you can't trust anything that Trump and this administration do. So I think being skeptical and scrutinizing his actions because of how they're operating from their own set of rules is kind of where we're sitting right now. And people just need to pay attention because we know that it is all about profit and it has nothing to do with actually caring for the citizens of Venezuela.
Absolutely. Ome Congo, looks like we've got you back. Look, this is United States saying we're going to use the military to do our economic bidding. This is about making billionaires richer, making American companies richer. That's what this is all about. It is not about American workers. It's about the billionaire class.
And what's incredible about it, you know, as much as Marco Rubio tried to deflect from that over the weekend, I mean, Trump said the quiet part out loud multiple times over the weekend. During the press conference, he mentioned oil like 23 to 25 times. Didn't mention democracy once, didn't mention elections at any single point in time. So he made that clear. He also made it clear, as you were saying with the representative earlier, that he contacted the oil companies before and after the raid and didn't contact Congress at all. So he's made it clear we got to get in there. We got to get the oil. They're sitting on our oil. And this is actually worse than Iraq, you know, because he's going in there right now making it clear. And he said, we'll get more troops on the ground if need be. This is a man who was a 5-time draft dodger. And the American people just need to wake up to the fact that this is who he is. This is gloves off Donald Trump. And yes, we talked about the Monroe Doctrine, or what he wants to call the Donald Doctrine. And he talked about the countries on this side of the world that needs to be mindful of what's going on. But Roland, shoot, I'm going to throw in Nigeria. And, you know, Nigeria may find out some things real soon as well, because that's another oil-rich country. And sure, it's not in the Western Hemisphere, but once he drops a bomb on a place, he almost feels like he has some type of ownership to it in some way, shape, or form. Lastly, I want to say that we have to be mindful of the fact that, as you led with, everybody in Venezuela is not celebrating. Many people are protesting. Many people are upset because this is not even a quote-unquote proper regime change. They didn't remove everybody. They just got rid of Maduro, who some people feel like his people on the ground sold him out. We still got U.S. political prisoners in Venezuela right now. So, and many civilians who were killed. So like you said, this is the hustle. This is colonization. This is all about resources. And Trump is making it clear. And we also have to be mindful of, he's doing this, is making Putin feel like he can do whatever he wants in Ukraine. Trump's former senior White House advisor, Fiona Hill, said in 2019, there was a conversation about, hey, you take Ukraine, we'll take Venezuela off your back. That's playing out in real time right now as well. And Taiwan also needs to watch out because China's like, hey, we might as well go for it too.
Yeah, so the United States, we can't say a damn thing if anybody else doesn't. All right, looks like we got the issues fixed with the video for Sky News. Let's pick up where we left off. We're about 3 minutes in, and it was the map of the United States where the reporter was breaking this whole thing down. So go ahead and play it.
These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually, that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil. So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America, in recent years, even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to. But it's Canada and it's Venezuela where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, about to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up kind of, you've got some in the north there to get the heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere and Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight. Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that was pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America is producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing you imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela. And it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%. 61%. And Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might well want to put into those American refineries. And there is really only one other place in the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela. And lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, you know, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics.
Man, isn't that something? That tells you all you need to know right there. A great report from the folks at Sky News, an amazing report. And it's stuff we need to pay attention to. Listen, these oligarchs, these billionaires, they're playing a game where they can make more money. One of Donald Trump's biggest financial supporters, guess what? He has a massive investment in Citgo. Oh, you know what that was? A company that was Venezuelan oil company. Mm-hmm. It's real clear. It's very clear, Cameron, what's going on here.
I mean, it's super clear. Like I was saying earlier, Roland, I think the fact that we are going after someone and going after it's this transparent. In Marco Rubio and the State Secretary's Marco Rubio, when he did address this, and then when Trump in his news conference, the fact that they mentioned some dozens of times about the oil and about those interests before they ever mentioned anything about democracy, anything about actually the people and free and fair elections. I thought our military and America's position around the world was to spread democracy, to be able to spread the ability for people to choose their own leaders and choose their own governments. It wasn't about that. And it's like, we usually use the term saying the quiet part out loud. It's not quiet anymore. I mean, this is just another line in the consistent, as the previous panelist said, this is the consistent privatization of every aspect of the U.S. government so they can control not only our interests, control our financial interests, and now control other countries' interests and resources. And this is something we all should be against. And it and they're using a line, Venezuela, he was a dictator. I mean, we can't go and fight everyone else's wars and go and just remove people at will, because it kind of feels like we live under our own dictator now.
Well, bottom line is, look, they want to act like the aggressor, the big bully. That's what America is doing, and it's more to come. We got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk with Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia, right here on Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is, of course, to get 20,000 of our fans a year contributing at least $50 each. That'll raise $1 million. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Folks, do understand, we made 4 new hires in the past month. We've got, of course, a daily noon show starting up January 26th. We've got a health show, weekly health show that we're launching. We're doing that. We're expanding blackstarnetwork.com. We've hired an editor for that as well. And so it takes resources. And so your support is absolutely critical. We've had nearly 37,000 donors since we launched on September 4th, 2018. And the work that we do here, nobody else is doing. Nobody in Black-owned media is doing what we're doing. And there's more that we want to accomplish. And so your support is critical. If you have not donated, hey, I was getting the emails over the holidays. A number of y'all were donating, and I appreciate that. It's a new year. And then, of course, if you've given in the past, we're sending out notices as well. Your support would be greatly appreciated. If you can't do $50, we understand that. Listen, every dollar counts, whether it's 1, 5, 10, 25, 50, 100, or even more. And so if you want to contribute to us, please do so with, of course, if you want to use Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. The Stripe QR code to contribute to support the show. It's a Stripe QR code. That QR code also can be used for credit cards. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, you can also contribute if you checks and money order. You can make it out to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Again, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered, because that's how the bank account was set up when we first started. Folks, we'll be right back.
The quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore. Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Longtime member of the House Armed Services Committee is Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia. He joins us right now. Congressman, I'm glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You are not unfamiliar with the use of military force. You understand these things intricately. And your assessment of what the hell happened this weekend, and when you have Donald Trump standing before the camera saying, oh yeah, we're going to run the country and they're going to do what we want them to do. And if they don't, then we're going to put somebody in who does what we want them to do. That's how it works. We now running other countries. We now get to tell a sovereign nation what they can do with their own resources.
Yeah, Roland, we've got a madman in the White House, a man who is impulsive, and he's guided only by greed and his desire to accumulate more wealth, which he has done a great job of over the last 11 and a half months. He has accumulated about $3 billion in added net worth. And now he stands to gain even more by using, or I'll say abusing, his power as commander-in-chief, consorting with oil company robber barons to seize the oil, to attack a foreign country, to bomb a country, kill its citizens, invade the country, take its leader, and then create a puppet leader so that he can occupy, so that the U.S. under Trump can occupy this foreign country and take its oil, natural gas reserves, and also its rare earth minerals, and put the profits in the hands of his crypto billionaire buddies who supported him for his reelection and who were all, many of whom were arrayed behind him at his inauguration. And so it was an act of war. It was a declaration of war. And that's what makes it illegal, because Congress is the only authority under our Constitution that can declare war. And if this is not a declaration of war to invade and bomb another country and seize its leader, I don't know what an act of war or a declaration of war is.
But it's not just even a declaration of war. I mean, to literally stand before and just loudly, unabashedly say, yeah, we're going to run the country. Oh, the opposition leader, the woman who got the Nobel Peace Prize, Trump's like, yeah, she don't have the respect. So, and now we're hearing that he's pissed off, but he's really pissed off at her because she did not turn down the Nobel Peace Prize, even though she praised him, thanked him. She did everything, and he's like, oh, still not enough.
She wasn't deserving of the Nobel Peace Prize to act like that. It really sullies the reputation of the Nobel Prize to award it to her. Nonetheless, she was loyal to Trump, and he doesn't have the good sense enough to bring her along with him on this escapade. He just cuts her off, and now he's trying to strong arm Maduro's vice president, turn her into a puppet, a U.S. puppet. And, it's behavior that makes me angry. I can't tell you how angry I am for the U.S. power to be used in this way to usurp a sovereign nation. And this is a small nation, by the way. I think 29 million people, Roland, and 51% of those people are mestizos, and another 3 or 4% are Black people. So these are people of color that you have gone in and you've taken over. They have a per capita income of $3,100 a year. So it's a poor nation. And you're not going to enrich the people by taking their oil. You're going to actually further impoverish them. And if it was about freedom and liberty, you would be talking about, if it was about democracy, you would be talking about advancing the cause of democracy in that country, but you can't do so because you're undermining democracy in this country. So it's really, it's really something. Then they try to blame it on, create the fact that, okay, we had to go in and seize Maduro, who's a bad actor and who is running a drug cartel. Yeah, well, that may be true, but you don't go into Russia to seize its leader who's running a racketeering enterprise over there, and you're trying to run one over here. So you really don't have any standing to be in anybody's country. And all of that, Roland, is not doing a damn thing to help with the pocketbook issue that Americans elected Trump to address.
So the question is this here. what next? What can you and other Democrats do to stop, contain this uncontrollable thug sitting in the White House?
Yeah, if we don't support our brothers and sisters who are taking it to the streets in protest, if we don't do that, then woe be unto us. Look at Cuba being next. Look at Colombia being next. Look at Mexico being next. Look at Greenland up north being next. Look at Canada being next. All of these targets have been identified by Donald Trump. And if you don't think he means what he says, by now, if you don't believe what he says, then you'll never believe what he says, despite what he does. But he does what he says he's going to do. And so we've got to stop him. And the way to stop him is by getting out into the streets and letting it be known that we're not going to tolerate this abuse of American taxpayer dollars. And I'm calling on all right-thinking people, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, along with everyone else out here, to do something to get in the way of what this administration is doing, because if we don't, it will just continue and it'll get worse. And these are the actions of somebody who's not planning on leaving office, Roland. It's going to take years to accomplish what Donald Trump wants to accomplish. And so he's planning on hanging around, and that's something that we need to address right now also.
Absolutely. Folks need to understand exactly what's going on here. My panel has some questions. Let me have them ask you. Let's see. Melinda, your question first for Congressman Hank Johnson.
Interesting. You said he says what he's going to do unless it's something positive, like bringing down the cost of groceries or having a plan for healthcare for the American people. But I guess my question for you is, because he's already threatened the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, that if she doesn't fall in line, there's going to be consequences. And I'm wondering what you know about her commitment to Maduro versus what she will do in regards to what Trump is saying that she needs to do.
Well, we've not been briefed by this administration on anything regarding this escapade that they are on. And the situation is fluid. Everyone's trying to deal with the reality that we have a madman who is in the White House, who has control of the nuclear arsenal, as well as all of the lesser weapons that this country possesses. And he is not averse to using it. And he will do so in a way that you never thought he would happen. I mean, he masters in shocking the conscience, and so I don't know what that leader down there will do. The interim president, she has called for Maduro's return. And everybody knows that occupation of foreign countries to plunder their resources does not work. It didn't work in Iraq. It won't work here in Venezuela. We got bogged down in Afghanistan, bogged down in Iraq, bogged down in regime change in Vietnam. We have a long history of invading countries and having protracted conflict, which drains our taxpayer treasure and costs American lives, and other folks across the water understand that as well. And so when they dig in and become insurgents themselves, they hold out until we leave. That's what we're setting up now. So regardless of what the vice president may say, we need to look at history in terms of what we do as a people from here.
Cameron.
Good evening, Congressman. How are you doing today? Happy New Year. My question is, as you mentioned, he's a master of kind of the shock and awe. And allowing us to divert our attention to something that is extremely important and extremely disturbing. But going into the new year, we were really hyper focused on the rising healthcare costs. Now that those ACA subsidies are coming off the books, we were focused on the Epstein files and Trump and all those that were named in there and all the mountains of evidence that has come out over the last few weeks. We were focused on a lot of issues that were deeply affecting inflation and prices rising. And it seems that every time the news cycle and there's some momentum also in the people in Congress and other places around things that could actually help us or things that are going to make him look bad, something else major happens. Can you talk to me about how you, your colleagues, colleagues in the House, colleagues in Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus, people are still trying to ensure we don't lose sight of of the fact that people's healthcare costs are rising, and now we're going in 2026, and all these other issues and prices are affecting people right here at home, because it feels like now this is going to suck up all the energy on the news, suck up all the energy online, and also, and rightfully so in some ways, but it's going to suck up a lot of your focus on Congress. But then we lose sight of something that's hitting our pocketbooks every day.
Well, you know, that's something that the American people are not going to lose sight on. They could care less about what's happening in Venezuela as far as their democracy is concerned, and they're more concerned about the cost of health care and the cost of groceries. They're concerned that the rent is too damn high and can't afford to buy a house because of the private equity firms snatching up all of the real estate and then charging exorbitant prices for the real estate. They're concerned about the inability to pay for child care. Child care costs through the roof. You know, and so those are pocketbook issues that the American people have on their minds, and they were lied to by Trump. He told them that you elect me and I'll lower cost on day one, and instead prices have gone up. And so the American people also understand that he promised them that if he was elected, he would release the Epstein files, and they see that he's doing everything he can to renege on that promise. So the conclusion that many Americans are coming to is the fact that Trump lied, and we can't trust him. We can see where he's making billions of dollars and we're losing money. Money is flowing from the pockets of the middle class and those aspiring for it, and going into the pockets of Trump and his billionaire buddies. That's what people see. And it's our job as leaders in Congress on the Democratic side to make sure that the people don't forget. And so we will be talking about those issues, but we'll also, it's also incumbent on us that we make sure that the people understand what Trump is doing with our military authority. And he has been turning that military authority on the people of the United States. But we've got a reprieve now with him going into Venezuela. He's distracted and has to use our assets in that way. And but it could all result in the plunder of the treasury and the lives of our young men and women who have to go to war to protect oil revenues for these oil barons out here. So we've got to keep fighting on all of these fronts. One thing that Trump likes to do is throw everything at you to make you, to subdue you, to cause you to lose hope that there's anything that you can do. And the way to combat that is to challenge every single thing that Trump does that's wrong, and don't let him get away with it. Hold him to account for it. And there'll come a time when accountability will be there for Trump and his billionaire cronies who are plundering the wealth of this nation and putting it into their own pockets.
Congo.
Representative Johnson, I wanted to get your thoughts on Republicans, right, in terms of how they're responding to this? On the Senate side, Senator Tim Kaine was talking about how they didn't want to support the War Powers Act he's pushing forward because they felt it was premature. And then this happened, and he said maybe some of them are going to change their mind. On the Senate as well as the House side, we now see that the CIA has been planning this since August at the earliest, which means that Rubio and others were lying to Congress when they were coming to testify. Are you seeing any deeper frustration from Republicans? Are they just going along to get along? Do they not care? Or are they finally getting upset with just the way that they're being treated?
Well, I've only seen one that has bucked on Trump, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. And
also Thomas Massey. He's been giving Trump a little hell.
I'll give you that. Thomas Massey has bucked on him in terms of the Epstein files and also foreign intervention. But these other ones are still drinking the Kool-Aid. They are too afraid to step out of line, and I think it's going to be the MAGA loyalists who end up, and I'm talking about the people, not the representatives, who end up concluding that they have been hoodwinked, that they have been deceived, that they have given power to if it was a different time, I would say a northern scalawag, carpetbagger, a Yankee. If that appeals to you, you've given power to somebody who is totally different than you, has totally different value system, doesn't care about you, only cares about the wealthy people, those who can afford to drink champagne and eat caviar in his golden ballroom that he's constructing. And, those people are different than you. And they don't mean you any good. And so when Republicans start hearing from their voters who have finally awakened to the reality that they've been hoodwinked, I expect them to continue to grovel for Trump's blessings and to cower in fear and remain silent when they know what he's doing is wrong.
All right, then, Congressman Hank Johnson, we appreciate it. We're going to continue to see this thing through, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. And by the way, I'm going to be submitting my $50 tonight. If you could run those methods of payment by me once again.
Absolutely. We can easily do that. Let's put it up, y'all. If y'all want to contribute to our Bring the Funk fan club, all you got to do is, if you want to use Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here on the screen. You can just point your phone to it, the QR code. That's also for credit cards. If you have PayPal, just go to paypal.me/R Martin Venmo, Roland@RolandSMartin.com, Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, and checks and money order. Make it payable to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. I'll send you a text so you have them. So you can pick the poison, which one you want. We certainly appreciate it, sir. Thanks a lot.
Well, we need a lot more poison out here. I tried to watch 60 Minutes last night, but they led with a story, about Maduro and the arrest being justified, basically, is what they were doing. And then you look at other CNN, and you look at the Washington Post and the LA Times and all of these organs that have been overtaken by these wealthy billionaires, and you cannot get reliable news from these folks. It says that it's time for other organs to move forward, and that's why we need to support yours.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and I agree. And listen, we're going to keep doing it. And I keep telling folks we're going to be expected to be on the road a lot. You've got elections in North Carolina and Georgia and Texas. I got folks asking me to come to Florida. And so, listen, that takes money. And so we look forward to doing that. Congressman, thanks a lot.
And by the way, when you come, you're always bringing these young people with you, and you are working with them on the set, if you will, out in the out in the street setting up equipment and doing all of that production, that pre-production work or whatever y'all call it. But you've got the people out there doing it, and so look forward to seeing you in Georgia.
Doing that, and we pay them. That's the other key. We also pay them as well. Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Pastors respond to what took place in Venezuela. We'll have that. Then we have our headlines as well. All of that right here. Coming up next, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. America is being reshaped in real time by a group of 6 people, unelected and without any checks and balances. By the end of the current Supreme Court session, education, the workplace, who gets to elect our leaders, and so much more could radically change. This week, we reconvene our legal roundtable and look at what the new America may look like and how we should respond. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Bishop T.D. Jakes, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Black pastors were not silent in the pulpit on yesterday as they spoke out about the actions that Donald Trump, the thug-in-chief, took in Venezuela. Here is what some of them had to say.
We must mark on this morning the fact that on Saturday, a criminal regime invaded a sovereign nation. We must be clear that invading sovereign nations is the business of America. That the founding of America is the invasion of sovereign nations, the pillaging of nations. And people say, we've never done this before. No, you remember Manuel Noriega? Panama, Haiti, Cuba. The list goes on and on and on. And I need us to be very clear, America has not changed. They are invading because of nothing other than greed and avarice. They want to control Venezuela's resources. W.B. Du Bois talks about how nations use propaganda to cover up their true intentions. So they might talk about freedom, but this ain't about no freedom. It ain't never been about freedom. The American project is not about freedom. I now understand what Herbert Hoover meant when he said the business of America is business. What he means is not human beings, not caring for one another, but extraction and the building of wealth. That is what America has been about, and that is what America is about. But we know the God who demands something different. And we will be a place of truth and a place of love.
Babylon, with its military might, in a real sense, has decided that they are going to take over a sovereign nation that has its own government. They're going to take over this sovereign nation. And after they take over the sovereign nation, then they decide, I'm going to run it. Now, I got to park right there because that has never worked out. United States of America. As a matter of fact, I'm old enough. Y'all too young to know. But we tried to run Panama. We tried to run Iraq. We tried to run Afghanistan. Every time we try to run another country that is sovereign and independent because of our agenda of greed and snatching oil, our agenda of taking over with an imperialistic mindset, it always results in chaos for that country. It always results in death. Did y'all see the mess yesterday where a press conference was held in Mar-a-Lago and they are bragging about how swift and sweet the kidnapping was of another nation's leader? Now, to be sure, he's a thug, he's a lowlife, but he's their thug and their lowlife. And we really can't talk about somebody else's leader being a thug and a lowlife when our own president got convicted on 34 counts. You talk about the supreme thug. And y'all, he's arrested, and they're talking about him because he allegedly is drug trafficking. Now, you gave a pardon and released someone who had been convicted of drug trafficking, but somehow this one is someone that you are going to have tried and convicted. I got a park right there. I think the difference is oil. I think oh, that's what he said, did he not? We're going to take our oil back. Did y'all hear that nonsense? How you gonna take back oil on another country's property and declare it's yours? I'm just trying to let you know that, my sisters and brothers, that's what's happening.
All right, Pastor saying what needs to be said. Going to a break. We come back. Headlines, Blackstone Network headlines with Brittany Noble. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Hey, I'm Tasha Cobbs, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. But I need a little filter. I need something. Blow me out. Make me look 35.
Folks, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens was sworn in for a second term in front of a large crowd at Georgia State University. He was, of course, the 61st. He is the 61st mayor of Atlanta, reelected by a wide margin. And in his address, he laid out that they must confront those in need in Atlanta. They must be participants in the Black Mecca, its economic revival.
I'm not satisfied. How can we be satisfied when too many of our neighbors still sleep on our streets? How could we be satisfied when poverty and inequality continue to divide our city? How can we be satisfied when too many families live check to check, often finding themselves with more month than they have money? These answers are yet to be written. And to write them, we must be honest about who we are and where we are from. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Right now, in this city, where a child is born still determines how long he or she will live. This is unacceptable. And Atlanta's future hinges on how we confront that truth. As a young man growing up in the church, I identified with the story of David. And although he becomes king, David's leadership does not begin in a palace. It begins in the field. formed by responsibility and perseverance long before recognition ever comes. Atlanta knows that story because David's leadership truly began in the neighborhood. Neighborhoods like mine, like Adamsville, where opportunity was scarce, but resilience was abundant. Places that were underestimated, places asked to endure more with less. And yet, time and again, they have produced strong leadership and possibility. That is why the defining work of this next term is the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative, an effort to ensure that every neighborhood in Atlanta is safe, connected, healthy, and whole. Many of our neighborhoods have been underserved and disinvested without access to food, amenities, jobs, and strong educational opportunities. And as a result, some of them are mostly impacted by violence. Poverty and inequality are our persistent enemies. They are Atlanta's Goliath. And as we all remember from Sunday school, when David faced Goliath, he didn't bring an army, he brought 5 smooth stones. Atlanta's 5 stones in this fight are affordable housing, investing in neighborhoods, opportunities for our youth, keeping residents and visitors safe, and all while prioritizing ethics, financial stewardship, and good government. Those are our 5 stones. And everywhere we've thrown those stones, the results have been undeniable. Across public safety and academic achievement, providing access to transit and job opportunities, promoting healthy foods and green space. Every investment has paid outsized dividends, not just for those immediately impacted, but for the entire city. The group project is working, and so we are no longer guessing. We're not debating whether this approach works. We have seen the results with our own eyes, and we're ready to face Goliath head on. Which brings us back to the biblical story. David does not negotiate with Goliath. He does not manage him. He does not accept him as inevitable. He defeats him. And like David, Atlanta has never backed down from hard work. In our Atlanta, we are done with managing poverty. We are done with tolerating inequality. We are done with accepting violence as destiny. These forces are not permanent, they are not unbeatable, and they do not get the final word. When we invest in people, families, neighborhoods, we don't just reduce the harm, we dismantle the conditions that cause the harm to exist in the first place. This is how Atlanta defeats its giants. That is how the group project will continue to deliver. Everything we've achieved and everything we've accomplished moves us toward a shared long-term vision that Atlanta will be the best place to thrive and raise a child. That is not just a slogan, it is our promise. Every investment in youth, safety, and neighborhoods is a step towards a city where every child has opportunity, every family can prosper, and every community is whole. And together, as one indivisible community, we will close the book on a tale of 2 cities and build a brighter future for all Atlanta. Let's continue to move Atlanta forward together. God bless you. God bless this city. Now let's get to work, Atlanta.
Look at our panel here. The thing here, Ome Congo, in this age we're living in, is that look, we've got a lot of our major cities where you have black mayors. Also mid-sized, small cities. If you're talking about, obviously Atlanta, Chicago, but then Los Angeles, but then of course we take this thing further, and now we talk about Montgomery and Birmingham and others. And so this really is, I think, an opportunity for black leaders there to really drive home and do exactly what Maynard Jackson talked about. His grandfather taught him the 3 B's: the bow, the book, and the buck. Utilizing political power to drive economic power. That's really what the Mayor Dickens was talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember maybe, I don't know, a year or two ago, you had a mayor on who was saying, under Trump's first administration, mayors were on their own. They were completely abandoned. And we are in that situation once again. And if people want to talk about what Trump is doing to flex his might around the world, we should be talking about what our mayors are doing to flex their might in a positive way, in a good way, in a way that actually serves the people. When you look at what, the Brandons are doing, the Scott and Johnson, and you look what's happening in Los Angeles, and they're like, our leaders need to step up to serve our community. And there's nothing better than to see these black mayors stepping up and the community supporting them and showing out for them. This is an all hands on deck moment. And the last thing we need is a mayor in our cities, or mayors in our cities, who are out of touch and cannot connect with the people right now. Because whether you look at healthcare, just look at what RFK did with the vaccines today, whether you're looking at that, whether you're looking at the economy, whether you're looking at education, our mayors are the first line of defense for us. We can talk about governors and everything else, but the people who represent the cities right now, they are really stepping up in ways that need to be recognized. And I'm so fortunate to see that the Black Star Network uplifts them, because quite honestly, it doesn't happen on other networks as much as it should. Some of these black mayors that get elected, it's not even a story on the news. And so it's really important that we see that this leadership is out there and that the numbers are growing. But most importantly, the way they get out there to continue to serve the community and connect the economics with the political message, it's a great sight to see. And more of them need to continue to be bold in what they're doing, because we need it now more than ever.
Well, the rally, Cameron, we've had many of these mayors on. We're having a lot more of these mayors on as we move forward in 2026. As I said, look, Dickens got reelected. Woodfin got reelected in Birmingham. The mayor Cleveland got reelected there as well. You got elections happening in Memphis. And so you have, opportunities for black leadership. But again, what they have to do, though, is they have to deliver for the people.
Yes, you were talking about a good friend of mine, Justin Bibb, in my hometown of Cleveland. Just got reelected last fall, and also they have to do so in this environment where the federal government and the president has taken clear aim at their leadership. He is going after every opportunity to really cut out the legs of Black power, and our strongest leaders, our strongest Black political leaders, are our mayors right now. We don't have many Black governors who have the power of the purse and have the power of policy in their states. Shout out to Wes Moore out in Maryland. But other than that, these Black mayors, to your point, can control funding and city funding. They can control policy. They can also really be blueprints for the rest of the country. And they have to do so in a political environment where they should not take their eye off the ball, no matter how much the federal government, the president, the MAGA right decides to come after them. And they've got to keep their nose clean and stay above board, making sure they're working with their police, making sure they're working with their city council, making sure they're working with the various community leaders to make sure they're doing all of this above board, because we need our Black mayors right now. We need them not only for what they can do for the city and what they can do for their individual cities. We need them collectively as a people and as America to be the kind of leaders that we can point to in, like I said, in this complex political environment.
Mott? Can you hear me? Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no. So I'm in Los Angeles. So I know how important local leadership is, and it's often the first point of access for real resources, specifically for the Black community. And I think strengthening our communities, like you all said, it just starts there. Utilizing, and you also said just utilizing political power for economic power is ensuring that also that the Black leaders and the Black mayors have access to the resource, the capital, the trust, and the authority. And so we not only need to support them, but we also need to make sure they're getting the support that they need to be able to build sustainable infrastructures and have lasting opportunities for them. So I do love seeing more Black leadership at the mayor level, and I just want to continue to see it even more. Yeah.
All right. Going to a break. We come back. Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble. Back in a moment.
This week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking about the ups and the downs of the holidays, the ebb and flow of life, those things that keep us running and gunning. But there comes a time in each of our lives where we need to just sit down, sit back, and relax, giving you a chance to really find out who you are and how you're going to move your life forward.
How do I learn? How do I grow from this? And that's where, resilience comes.
I'm literally walking this out in real time. It's just giving myself all the grace, all the space, all the permission that I need.
We're talking about all of these things this week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
It's your boy Earthquake, giving Roland Martin something to do, because he don't know what to do. He from Texas. Ain't his fault.
All right, folks, time for our Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
The Trump administration criticized Walz about a child care fraud scandal, though he has not been accused of any wrongdoing. Walz had been the favorite to win re-election later this year, but in his announcement, he says he's unable to give his campaign his full attention. Well, the Department of Defense cut Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly's retirement rank as Navy captain. The move is in response to a video that he made 6 weeks ago, urging service members to refuse illegal orders. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth called the video reckless and seditious with an intent to undermine good order and military discipline. The video includes 5 other members of Congress. However, Kelly is the only veteran in the video still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Baltimore reports its lowest homicide count in nearly 50 years. The city had less than 150 killings, the lowest since 1977. New crime data released on Thursday show violence is down across the board, with homicides dropping more than 30% from last year, from 194 to 133. Non-fatal shootings also fell, along with carjackings and assaults. Well, a Philadelphia neighborhood is cleaning up Roxborough High School after the campus was vandalized overnight with racist and anti-Semitic graffiti. Swastikas and racial slurs were spray painted across parts of the school. Authorities say the message included misspelled hate language targeting multiple groups. Philadelphia City Council member Curtis Jones Jr. condemned the vandalism, saying incidents like this have no place in the city. And police, we're told, are investigating. Well, a new report finds Black women are facing serious barriers when it comes to menopause care. Researchers say a lack of cultural awareness, rushed doctors' visits, and limited tailored information often leave Black women undiagnosed or untreated for years. Lawmakers are now calling on the government and the NHS to work directly with Black women and other marginalized communities to ensure equitable access to care. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back to you.
All right, Brittany, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. We're going to go to a break. It'll be our last break before we close the show out. Back in a moment.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. America is being reshaped in real time by a group of 6 people, unelected and without any checks and balances. By the end of the current Supreme Court session, education, the workplace, who gets to elect our leaders, and so much more could radically change. This week, we reconvene our legal roundtable and look at what the new America may look like and how we should respond. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks. We've been talking about obviously what's been happening in Venezuela, and here's the thing that we have to recognize, Ome Congo. Listen, Congress coming back. We still got to deal with health care. I mean, look, we can have all this conversation about Venezuela, about what's happening there, but Republicans still have not dealt with the expired Affordable Care Act tax subsidies. And the bottom line is that pressure needs to continue on Republicans and reminding voters how their health care costs have been skyrocketing because the Republicans chose to give their rich donors huge tax breaks in that big ugly bill and didn't give a damn about the health care of some 21 million Americans.
Absolutely. And look, those of us who are in this world, news spaces and the like, we're going to talk about Venezuela because we're supposed to and we have to. And there are going to be people, across America who are going to look at it from a distance and say it's wrong. We shouldn't be doing that. But this healthcare stuff, it's real. And it's going to hit people even harder. I'm seeing stories about so many small businesses that are closing. We're seeing stories about people who are just foregoing healthcare in various ways and hoping to get lucky and not getting sick. And then when you look at on the flip side of it, what's happening with the hospitals that are closing, rural hospitals, hospitals within our cities that are closing as well. Stuff's really about to hit the fan in ways that I don't think many Americans were actually expecting. I mean, we expected it because we knew the Republicans never had a plan in the first place. Donald Trump has had about 10 years for his concepts of a plan. But look, this is 2026. This is an election year. And this is an opportunity for many people to get, but that election is in November. We have a long road as it relates to the type of suffering that we're going to be seeing. We're going to see more medical bankruptcies. We're going to see more people foregoing other types of aspects, paying their rent and so on and so forth. Number one form of bankruptcies in this country is relating to healthcare costs. And so I'm really concerned about what this country is about to go through. And my hope is that more people who have supported Republicans will get angry enough to start showing up at these people's doors, at their offices, to start getting out in the streets, to start flooding the zone as it relates to who these guys' sponsors are and so on and so forth. Because the saddest part about all of this is that Trump is getting over because people are letting him getting over. Not enough people are speaking up. And maybe it needs to hit them a little bit harder. Like you said, a hurt dog will holler. Maybe that's what needs to happen, but it's about to happen now, and America needs to get ready.
Yeah, it is still going to be an issue. And again, what they cannot do, Cameron, they cannot get sidetracked with what's happening on the foreign policy side because that's what Donald Trump wants. He does not want to deal with this failing economy. He does not want to deal with these shameful tariffs and how it's impacting prices in the country as well. And so, again, if Democrats are going to take back the House or even win these Senate races, it is seriously going to require there to be a real focus on domestic policy.
You're right, Roland. You've said this on the show many times. A lot of people are focused at 2026, this year that we're here in November. These elections, quite frankly, could determine the future of America. I know that may sound like a lot, that may sound like hyperbole, but it's serious in terms of and really controlling both the House, the Senate, and trying to put some big checks and balances back into our federal government, which has a trickle down effect to the states. And one thing that we're not talking about that we need to focus on, that the Democratic Party needs to focus on, that organizations around any pro-democracy organization in this country needs to focus on, is voter registration and voter suppression. They're quietly, state by state, purging different people or finding excuses to push people off the rolls. You hear Donald Trump continuing the drumbeat on trying to eliminate or trying to greatly restrict early voting, mail-in ballots, claiming there's fraud, claiming so many different things. When you look at some of the voting machine companies that have been taken over or been bought out by different people who are sympathetic to the Republican Party or sympathetic to Donald Trump. We don't want to get to 2026 and then what he's doing and sending in all these troops and National Guards to the city and getting us normalized to having them there and being able to activate them at any time for any reason. We don't want to get to November and get to a place where we realize we want to turn out and want to show our vote and want to show our power and try to take back this country that way. And we find millions or hundreds of thousands and millions of people in key cities and key states no longer on the rolls and not being able to register. We want to make sure that we are really turning people out early, starting right now, and getting them registered to vote in both their early elections and into the fall.
Maud?
Cameron, you mentioned that it may sound like hyperbole, but issuing warnings about what will happen with healthcare and voting, we did that with Project 2025, and they said that it was hyperbole and we were over exaggerating, and so much of it has come to pass. And so I just really think the goalpost keeps moving for people. I think there's a lot of denial, but we have to continue to telling them to pay attention, and we have to get people to take this election seriously, because it's not just the people who voted for him in this last election, it's the people that didn't turn out. And we have to make sure that they understand what is on the line when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to their rights, when it comes to the economy. So I appreciate you saying that, but it's not hyperbole at all. It is a very serious warning, and we got to get people to take it seriously.
All right, then. Maud, Cameron, Ome Congo, I certainly appreciate y'all joining us on the first show in 2026. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, that is it for us. Tomorrow of course, we're going to be covering more of these stories, but also tomorrow we'll have an interview that I did 6 years ago actually 7 years ago, with the great Richard Smallwood. He passed away a few days ago at the age of 77. He, of course, is phenomenal gospel musician, but also an absolute master of music. We talked about his book, Total Praise, and we will, of course, have that for you. His funeral, they've released the information. It's going to be taking place at First Baptist Glenarden on January 24th, and we'll be live streaming the homegoing service of Richard Smallwood. So you don't want to miss my interview with Richard Smallwood tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Folks, don't forget to join our Bring the Funk fan club. It's content like this you're not getting anywhere else. And so we would certainly, if you want to support the work that we do, please do so, contributing to our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 of our supporters on an annual basis, contributing at least $50 each a year. You can't give that. You can give more. That'd be great. If you have to give less, we understand that as well. And so we want you to support the work that we do. It really is about centering African Americans and what we do. And so your support is greatly appreciated. And so if you want to contribute via, of course, Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. That Stripe QR code, you see it right here on the screen. You can also use the Stripe QR code for credit cards as well. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. If you want to download the Black Star Network app, here's the deal. We switched over to a new provider of our app. A lot of y'all have been having some issues. I understand that. You need to reset your password. If you have any problems with the app, send us an email so we can get those things straight. But if you got any issue, but download the app. We're on available platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and of course Samsung Smart TV. And so get it all right there. And of course, if you want to support, get our swag, be sure to do so. By get the Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com. And of course, we've got all the black-owned products you see on shopblackstarnetwork.com. These are black-owned companies. They are vendors we do business with. You want to support those folks, not just of course when it's Christmas, but all year round. So go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. In the studio, we got all those products that are on my set. You can see that right there. You can check it out there as well. And they extended the close for Fanbase. Here's the whole deal, y'all. $16.8 million has been raised. $16.8 million. So when they hit 17 million, the raise closes. So if you go to startengine.com/fanbase, startengine.com/fanbase, more information. But again, that raise is almost done. It's almost done. Okay. So go to startengine.com/fanbase for more information. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!